we'll give them a few minutes and then we'll start the show.
Great.
Great. Can they hear us now? Or are we like,
Yes.
you guys
Hear
are
our
like,
banter.
yeah, we can just sort of,
Hi, Claire. Hi, Mr. Flynn, Mr. Ramirez. Thank you for hosting
Hello.
me.
Hi, Janine. Hi, Usuri.
Good. Oh, you sorry. Hi.
Hello. Thanks for coming.
This is so exciting. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, it's our pleasure.
yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about it with you. This is, you know, I'm interested to hear how this came about, you know, especially, yeah, we'll wait till we'll
Yeah.
continue the conversation when everyone's here, but there's a lot of
I do feel like you really got it. Like the blurb really speaks to.
I might read the blurb for the part
Yeah.
of my beginning. So just because it, yeah.
I was like, oh, he really did read this.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to read. It really was. Like I really I kind of kept I didn't have time to read it earlier. I think it landed at the beginning this year, like right in 2021. Didn't I just do this? No, I guess November. No, I guess
no, it's the fall.
The fall. Okay, so I did have some time. I was trying to think because the spring is not so great for me to do stuff because I'm teaching. So
yeah.
You got it in right under the wires.
And I think a lot of people don't read the books they blurb. So it's an honor when someone does.
That'd be hard. I don't know. Strange. Yeah.
All right, we can get started. We'll have a few more people come in. Looks like we've got some people in the waiting room. All right, welcome everyone to Exile and Bookville's Author on Tap reading series. I'm Javier Ramirez, and along with Kristen Gilbert, co-run Exile and Bookville, a virtual shop at the moment with a solid plan to become a real live bookstore in Chicago very soon. So those of you that know Jeff Waxman are aware that when he talks, you can't help but listen. Now, what I mean by that is that Jeff is boisterous and hard to ignore, even in text and email. But every once in a while, he mixes a little passion into his spiel, especially when talking about books, like when he approached me about hosting an event for our featured author tonight, Claire Cox. I listened intently, was very intrigued, and here we are. So tonight, thanks to Jeff, we are very excited to host Claire and help celebrate the release of her debut novel, Silver Beach. Claire's story, Look at You, was a finalist for the Jeffrey E. Smith Editor's Prize and was published in the fall of 2020 issue of the Missouri Review. Silver Beach, which we'll be discussing tonight, won the Juniper Prize for fiction and is out now from UMass Press. She has an MFA from Hunter College and lives in New York with her family. Claire will be in conversation with Nick Flynn, writer, playwright, and poet. His most recent books are This Is the Night Our House Will Catch Fire, a hybrid memoir, and Stay, Threads, Collaborations, and Conversations, which documents 25 years of his collaborations with artists, filmmakers, and composers. He is also the author of 5 collections of poetry, including I Will Destroy You. He has been awarded fellowships from the Guggenheim Foundation and the Library of Congress, and is on the creative writing faculty at the University of Houston. His acclaimed memoir, Another Bullshit Night in Suck City, was made into a film starring Robert DeNiro and has been translated into 15 languages. You can purchase books by both authors through links provided in the chat or visit our website, exileandbookville.com. As an added bonus, each book comes with a signed book plate. And we encourage those of you who are watching tonight to leave your cameras on, but please stay muted until the Q&A portion should you have any questions. If you can put those questions in the chat, Nick will find those and put them forth to Claire. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight, and I'm super excited to hear what you guys are going to talk about, and for the reading as well. I'm going to get out of the way and pass this along to Nick. So please, everyone, enjoy the show.
Thank you, Javier.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. It's really an honor to be here with Claire Cox. She approached me. We do not really know each other. I guess we met 10 years ago. At some point, 10 years ago, 5 years ago?
10 years ago.
10 years ago when she was getting her MFA at Hunter, and I gave her a reading and we met briefly. But I don't really even remember what she said, but she wrote me an email and asked me to look at her book, and I looked at it, and I did. When something like that happens, I'll sort of read the first page or so, and I was really taken just by from the first page of it, and so I'm really glad to be here to celebrate now that it's out. It's like it's a really beautiful, strange, twisted, funny, terrible book. It's really wonderful in many ways. It's a lot of things are happening in this book, and it's very. I just like tore through it too. I tore through it in like a few days. I really loved it. So I'm just going to read what I wrote for it because this sort of distills my thinking about it. What do you do when life takes a turn and becomes a downward spiral? What do you do when it is your mother caught in that spiral? Silver Beach is populated by 3 sisters, one drowned, one lost, one settled. Their roles keep shifting. The one who is settled begins to drift. The one who is lost speaks the truth. The one who is drowned rises up. It's about how the past shapes us, about the debt we owe our blood, even those we barely know. By the end of this gritty, luminous novel, a hard-earned peace settles in. The cabinet's emptied, the ashes scattered, mistakes become life. By the end, it's the family we create and gather around us that keeps us tethered. Wow. It does sort of, that captures sort of the whole book for me. So I got very moved reading that. Like, it feels like it does sort of contain like the energy of the book. And reading it through, I was sort of like reliving reading the book. So I think our plan tonight is to have Claire's going to read a little bit from the book for us, which I think is great. And then we're going to, Claire and I will have a little discussion. And then you guys, if you have questions, we can sort of open it up to questions and have people jump in too. So thanks everyone for being here. And here's Claire Cox.
Thank you so much, Nick. And thank you, Javier. And thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everybody who's here. It's wonderful to see you. Hello, hello, hello. So I am going to read from a chapter near the end. And in this section, Linda, so the book is what happens when 2 estranged sisters reunite when their mother's alcoholism becomes catastrophic. And the settled sister, as Nick describes her, is living a sort of quiet, tidy life in Massachusetts, where she's a school librarian. And the lost sister is just I keep trying to find a synonym for the word fuck up, but I feel like fuck up really captures Shannon, so I'm just going to stick with it. And she's in her late 20s, and Mara is in her early 30s, and Linda is, you're going to find out. So in this section, Linda is alone in the apartment. Both of her daughters are here with her in San Diego, but they aren't in the apartment at the moment that she's narrating this. She tried to stop drinking. She knows they aren't cups of tea. She isn't stupid. When Stan lived with her, they drank too much, more than she ever had before. She gained weight with all the beer, the wine coolers, the tequila shots. Stan loved getting to that water-eyed, maudlin state where you declared your love and loyalty, no matter who had punched his fist in a wall the night before. He'd get weepy and lift her up from the kitchen chair and tell her she was too good for him, which was true. She hadn't meant to get pregnant. She almost got rid of it, but she kept putting it off. Then she started showing, and it was too late. Stan, of course, was thrilled. She cut back on her drinking through each of her pregnancies. It wasn't hard. She hardly drank at all when she was breastfeeding, but she weaned each baby after 6 weeks because she wanted her body back. She really, truly quit when Shannon was 8 months old, the girls 7 and 8. She didn't go to meetings or anything. She just quit. She put Stan's beers in the alley with the trash and poured all the liquor and a dozen little bottles of Bartles and James down the sink. Stan was furious. It was the first time he left for more than 24 hours. She got so sick she thought it was the flu, and she stuck the girls with a neighbor while she waited out the fever, the nausea, the shakes. She didn't call in at Safeway, and they let her go. It's a stupid story. When Stan returned, it had been 3 weeks. Linda was sober and working on her boss to give her back her job. The girls were fine. Everything was fine. She was playing cards with the neighbors when he came through the door, puffy-faced and repentant. It was a crime against nature that he was so good looking. She was glad when he finally left for real. She was about to quit drinking again and stay quit because she was the only mother those little girls had when Allison got lost in the current, and then it was too much. She never let go of the pleasure of a cocktail, the icy warmth, the tart edge, the feeling of doing something grown up and illicit. Her family were teetotalers except for Aunt Ada, who liked scotch in the evenings and swore Linda to secrecy about it. Someday her daughters will soften and become better people with their own lives and houses. Shannon will move out. It sounds nice living alone. No one interfering with her routines, no one burning enough incense for a Turkish bazaar. She picks at the scab on her arm from the IV, and blood threads down her elbow onto the sofa. She stares at it before trying to blot it with a tissue. The fan's feathery croak as it turns back and forth. An airplane, a nail gun from a construction site across the alley, the fuzz of freeway and ocean, the sound of the white sky itself. Harder to comfort herself since she got home. Everything feels deflated, the afternoon of it all. She settles back against the sofa cushions and closes her eyes. She startles from sleep in a sweaty fury, gulping air. The sofa is a sarcophagus. She rises and stumbles to the TV for balance, walks high-kneed to the kitchen, hands splayed, listening for signs of anyone else in the house, but she can't tell. Mara is sneaky, secretive. She always was. She could be in one of the bedrooms rearranging things. Linda is too tired to care. In the freezer, a fresh little bottle. Apparently, Mara couldn't bring herself to trash it on her rampage through the kitchen. Linda doesn't want a mug. Every surface outside the freezer is too warm. The bottle itself is cool, alive, the vodka viscous as it comes out. It vibrates in her mouth and stings her nostrils, soothes her throat, burns her chest. She drinks it like water, more than usual, claiming herself. It's always in her ear, feathering her cheek. Yes, she says. Yes, the love returning. Oh, to be a classy drinker again. Martinis, heels, a man in a jacket paying the tab. This was before she turned 21. She'd sneak off to Los Angeles by bus in her best outfit. She was going to be discovered. Her favorite bar was at the Chateau Marmont. They mistook her for Anne Margaret twice. She never went anywhere with the men who bought her drinks, not even up to their rooms. They didn't usually have rooms. They were trolling for girls like her while their wives cooked dinner at home. They said they were casting directors, managers, producers. Of course they weren't. One man's business address was a cheap bungalow in Century City. She got a friend to drive her just to see. Another's phone was answered by his teenage daughter. No one wanted to hear her sing. She screws the cap back on and places the bottle gently in the freezer behind a bag of ice. She smooths her blouse, her slacks, her hair, and returns perilously to the sofa. She is too tired to light a cigarette. Sleep falls on her like a wave.
Thank you so much. But while we begin our talk, maybe people can just sort of put in the chat thing just to get the conversation going. Just put in where you're coming in from. I'm in Brooklyn. I won't put that in. Claire is in the northern reaches of Manhattan Island. Well, not quite northern. Yeah, Morningside Heights.
Uptown.
Is that Midtown you call it?
Uptown.
Uptown, yeah, Uptown. So maybe just put it in. I'd love to know where people are zooming in from. But that was gorgeous. And tell me why, I'll say a few things about it in a second we just read, but why did you choose that passage to read?
I really wanted to read a passage from Linda. Her voice was the hardest to find and to kind of inhabit. But when I finally found it, it was really distinct. And something about her first chapter just didn't lend itself to a reading. So I actually had never considered reading from that chapter. And then I was kind of thumbing through and I was like, oh, this.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that you do in the book that is so, beautiful. It's just that, each character gets their own point of view, like, right? Like you're doing it from different perspectives from, we get Shannon, who is the fuck up, seemingly, at the beginning of the book, Linda Mara, who is the librarian, who's seemingly has her life together. I don't think we don't get a point of view of Allison. I don't think we don't enter into into Allison.
She's a chimera.
Those are the 3 points of view that sort of we keep weaving through, and then there's sort of a floating one. But this one, you do other things too in this chapter. What you just read, I love that you read that one. Just that, like staying with this like moment, just like she's home from the hospital, the mother's home from the rehab place.
Yeah.
You call it, yeah. I think
sort of a halfway house. It's like not quite rehab. It's like where you go when no one is there to pick you up.
Yeah. And what her, what her focus is, like what her motivation is. She's just thinking about like, I know this is bottle. I'm going to have this bottle, and then these beautiful like poetic passages coming in. These almost like these like riffs, like the fuzz of freeway and ocean, the high need to the kitchen, like how she's walking, like these really beautiful in the midst of this. And that wasn't like an especially funny chapter, except for those observations, except for like how she's sort of moving around and what she's thinking, how she's feeling, and how she's negotiating with her, to get what she needs at that moment. I'd love to sort of hear like something. I don't write novels, like it's not a thing I do, like, and I'm fascinated by it, like how you do this, how you like sort of began, like what did you begin with this? Like, did you begin with what scene, like, or what was this beginning of this? Like, and I understand it was like 10 years you started, like 10 years ago?
Yeah.
I feel very close to that, because it took me 10 years to get my first book out also.
Oh, so, that's reassuring, because you've written so many since. It's funny. The novel, the form of the novel didn't feel comfortable to me until a good while into my writing life. I started out as a poet in junior high, as many people do. But I didn't ever like feel like I inhabited that form later. It's one of the forms I respect the most, and that I find the most like mystifying and difficult. But I really started out as a playwright. That was that just really felt like the sweater I was meant to wear. And I focused on that in college, and I did a lot of that in high school, and I had some plays produced in San Diego. And then around the time that I moved to the city and became a teacher, plays just suddenly felt like just creaky and awkward, and I just couldn't make the move. And I had this kind of like fallow period where I guess kind of personal essays made sense, but not even that much. And then when I was 29, I just suddenly like prose fiction opened up, and I had tried it before and just couldn't get it. And I don't know what happened, but now it feels like, honestly, it feels like a cop-out, because it feels so much not easier, but it just comes. And a novel, I feel, is easier than a short story, because like Colin McCann, who was one of the teachers in my grad program, he described novels as long stories with mistakes. And I write long, so I keep trying to write short stories, and they're not really short. And you really want to write 5,000 word stories if you want to submit them to literary journals. And mine are always like 7,000, 10,000, 13,000, and everything just really just wants to be a novel. But this is my first novel, so it started as a story because I couldn't imagine starting a novel at the time. It started as a story that was pretty creaky and bad and, awkward. And the opening scene was Shannon's phone call to Mara saying, like, you have to come out here, because I think at that point, I hadn't really clarified what had happened to Linda. I just knew that she drank too much and something bad had happened. And I don't know if, there's no way you would know this. I talked about this in my other event, but you weren't there. I was very inspired to write this by listening to an episode of This American Life. It's an episode from about 11 years ago called Duty Calls by Josh Behrman. And do you know that one?
Oh yeah, I know Josh and I know that piece. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
Oh my God. And it absolutely haunted me. And my app, my This American Life app was malfunctioning. So what I would do is I would just walk around Manhattan in the summertime when I was off from teaching and listen to This American Life and come up with story ideas. I find it very difficult to come up with plot and story ideas, like just the sort of starting thing. So, but they would come if I was listening to This American Life. So I was, I'd like pushed a story and I was all set to like walk all the way across Manhattan from my dentist to my apartment, like East Side, West Side. And the app wasn't working. So it played Duty Calls again. And I was like, oh, this one really like lives inside. Oh, it's under my skin. What about it? And just the way you could have two people in the same family who end up having completely different levels of precarity and different senses of what's normal and a different kind of understanding of how to live and how to make a life and how to just be functional, but they're in the same family and something is missing from the parenting of one of them. And just how the hell does that happen? And kind of the way like Josh Behrman feels like he's just galaxies away from his mother, but also feels like she left him. And I don't know, on some really deep level that resonated with me. It's almost like it was the same resonance that Another Bullshit Night in Suck City had. Like what the debt we owe our blood and the ways that parents can fail.
Yeah, that's so great. That's fascinating that your path to get as a writer, just like how you got to something. My mail is still open, so it's gonna bonk if I don't shut it off.
Somebody sent Nick an email, everybody.
Yeah, not an important one. Yeah, everyone will know when I get an email. From the DNC once again,
Oh yeah, you got to unsubscribe from those. No offense.
Yeah. One thing I can say about the book is like before, because I read it back in November, and I remember when I was like, revisiting it in my mind and sort of looking at it, and this is meant to be a compliment. I couldn't remember, but now it's a little awkward to say it because your mom's here, but I couldn't remember. I was like, is this a memoir? Because it was so like I felt so in the world. I mean, there's something about, like you say that it's you write long, but like the characters really feel like so well realized. Like in the scenes, they're so well like I'm so in them when I'm reading them. I'm just like with these people and sort of get them and getting there's the shift in the middle of it, which gets sort of like a Sam Shepard type thing where like True West, where like the brothers sort of shift, the good brother becomes the bad brother, and and the total fuck up suddenly like becomes like luminous in some way, somehow up, which was like also gorgeous. But it felt really real to me. It really felt like I was really confused up until shortly before we came on, like, was this a memoir? I had to look at the cover of it to make sure, because which for me is I admired that. So you had the scene with these two sisters, and one is like, you knew one was a fuck up and they were estranged in some way, like, and one is far away, and they're both on either side of the country. And talking to you a little before we started, you spent time in Massachusetts for one of the sisters, Mara, the stable sister is in Massachusetts, the quote unquote stable sister.
Yeah.
Then the fuck up is in San Diego with her mother, right? And so, I mean, you have that too. You have the geography of the thing, of the country, and sort of like these two different places, and you really get a sense of like the location too in these books. Like these locations, like the scenes in Northampton are very Northampton. Very like the people that are there, the type of people that are around the table and what they're doing, and Mara is sort of like trying to navigate like being in this life, but not really totally being in that life, like like sensing like she's an outsider, like in that life, which I thought was really real also, and true, and funny, like in the waves of embarrassment that rise up when people sort of remember her, when one woman remembers like the mother coming, like,
Yeah.
situation like years before. So I'm fascinated, like, because I feel like from this book, like I was very impressed, because I do read, like I say, like to commit to reading a novel to me is a lot. I'm a poet. I read nonfiction, and
Yeah.
and I was really like, okay, someone I don't know has sent me a book.
Some rando.
I'll take, some rando, and I'll just sort of like, I'll take a look at the first page, like, well, okay, there's something here. There's something interesting. And then the language really carried me along. But so it's so interesting here that you've gone through poetry, playwriting, personal essay to fiction. Like I feel like all those things are in this in some way. Like I feel those lines I read are very poetic. This poetic thing, the navigating of like scenes like around the table, scenes in the house and stuff do feel like plays. It feels like all the stuff that you've learned is you've put into this one form. Okay, now that's all I'll say. Now you just talk.
No, you have to ask me questions because I don't know what to say.
I have to ask you a question. How did you do that? No, I don't know. I thinking of like the book itself, it's so distilled. Like it feels like so like it doesn't feel like there's anything there that's not supposed to be there. Like it just like moves along really rapidly. Like I think that's what I get lost in a lot of fiction. I'm like, why am I on this journey with this person? Like, like a lot of this, like I don't really like, and I'll be really taken by like some aspect of it. I'll think like the writing is really interesting, like the voice, the scene is good. But at a certain point, I'm like, but why am I reading the whole book though? Like I've already gotten what I want out of it. With yours, like I was really compelled to read to the end. And was that a thing? Like, did you have a sense like how to keep people like reading a book? Were you thinking of that as you put it together?
I mean,
That's a question.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm new at this. It's funny. As a playwright, I struggled mightily with structure. I remember like making all these diagrams, and they didn't work, and I couldn't make them work. I couldn't force them to work, and I never knew. I was always like, what happens next? What happens next? I think the urge I have as a writer, it's almost a filmic urge, impulse. I almost want to just like make some like Miranda July short, but I'm not a filmmaker. I'm not going to be a filmmaker. I'm not going to study film, and it's expensive. It's not what I'm going to do. But I think with my fiction, I struggle with the fact that very plot driven, like tight, well-made story, fiction is so valued in our culture. And I think that's one of the reasons I struggled to find an agent who would commit to trying to sell this, because it doesn't have a super tight plot. Like it is distilled, but it's not like.
It's so funny. Like I think it has a plot that I like. I mean, this is the type of plot I like. Like it's
plot I like too.
Things happen, like there's surprising things that happen. There's no sense of like inevitability, like a random happen, like suddenly Mara will end up in a bar and hook up, and then there's consequences after that, and there's like that are sort of surprised, like, oh yeah, that something comes from that, like that it actually like leads to the whole thing. So it's not like maybe it isn't, maybe this is the kind of plot I like, but it does seem right. But it does seem like all the stuff, whatever you failed at, if you're calling it a failure, or that you struggled with as a playwright, it seems like it led into this. It helped you in this book. It really felt like all that work you do, which is what we do as artists. We sort of just try things on and try do the best we can with, like, am I this? Am I a poet? Am I a playwright? Right. But I can really see with this too. Can you imagine this? It's very visual too. I mean, it's like there's distinct road trips where people are getting in cars and going places, and then and then running out of money, and then having to like sort of figure out how to get to the next thing. So, it really feels like, there's people waiting back home for people that don't that never come back, or come back in a
Yeah.
different form. I mean, I can really imagine it as a really cool movie. Like, it's certainly.
I wanted to be a movie so bad.
Yeah, no, I can really imagine it from this, just from reading it. It's very, these three great women characters. It's great.
And each of them is like their own little short film, like they're so, if anybody knows anybody in film. But so I just wanted to say like about it ended up having a very distilled structure, but that's very hard won.
Yeah.
I think there's just a ton that is on the editing room floor. There's so much that I cut. I also I thought I'd finished it the summer after graduating from Hunter, and I sent it to a couple of agents, and it was rejected. And then I read through it and was like, oh my God, the entire second half is a complete mess. It's just a muddle. It's maudlin and ridiculous. People wading into the water to die, and lots of overwrought metaphors and just all kinds of craziness. And so I wrote it I basically cut it in half. I don't remember the exact point when I threw away the end. But the summer before my son was born, so I was very motivated. I was about to lose all my free time. For the first time, I wrote out what would happen before I wrote it. I outlined the plot of what was left. I finally had a sense of the beats. And I just got up every day and wrote it, and then it was done. But it was really, it was just a very winding road to get there.
People are so strange. Agents are so strange. I would think they would just jump on this book, but I guess once you changed it, did suddenly it become? Did suddenly people recognize it?
I mean, I got a lot of requests for the full manuscript and personal rejections that were this is a really beautiful book. I'm just not the right agent for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't, once I got a dozen of those, I didn't know if I should keep querying or if I should write another one. I was maybe it's fatally flawed and they're just saying nice things. I sent it to a friend of mine and I was like, can you diagnose what's wrong with this book? And he was like, I don't know, I'm just a guy. I guess you could do this or this. And then at that point I was sending it to contests, and then it won, and they were like, don't change it. And actually that's not true. Sam Michelle, the guy who chose it, said, I think the ending doesn't, I think you've earned more than what is at the very, very end. So I did change that at his suggestion, and it's much better. It's very subtle. It's 2 sentences are different, but it's so much better. And then another friend pointed out, Garbo used to be 3 people, and they were the least fleshed out characters in the whole book. And they weren't full people. I was treating them like a device. And so I consulted with 2 friends who gave me a lot of honest insight, and I the funeral scene and the more fleshed out kind of Garbo bits in the novel are all I wrote those last summer very quickly, and those 2 friends kind of gave me the thumbs up, and then I turned in the final manuscript.
Wow. You see, I read in the notes or something, you thanked some people for, I think it seems like giving you sort of insights into alcoholism, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, what was that? You sort of knew that the mother was struggling with alcoholism. Then you decided okay, I got to figure out what this is. So how'd that go?
I think I really needed to know what were the physical constraints and the physical realities of being that far gone into your alcoholism, but still alive. Yeah. And I was actually very surprised with what I found. And I didn't have a literal phone book, but I basically went to the phone book and called an addiction specialist and a doctor who worked with people like Linda. I think I consulted with 3 or 4 people like that who told me about Werner-Korsakoff syndrome and peripheral neuropathy. And my mom is in recovery. She was never like Linda, but she is in recovery. And so she definitely consulted with me about just kind of the broad contours.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's another thing I really respect about the book is that like, no one is in it who like there's deep compassion and understanding for all the characters. Like there's even in the midst of their whatever, like their, whatever disasters are befalling them. Like I really got a sense like that this, that, and I think that's why I was like, oh, this is like a memoir. Like I was like someone who's really been there, in this thing. But like to do that work, that is such important work to do for a book like that. If you're going to write about an alcoholic, like it seems like that's the least you owe them, as a character. For what I know about creating characters, I mean, I guess, I write nonfiction or memoirs, and but even that is creating characters. I mean, you're sort of
Fully.
that I'm needing to like understand the people. I don't necessarily understand them fully when I start. I need to sort of understand like why they are like they are. And, I mean, and that's one thing that your book too. Like, I mean, part of this is like if there was like an what's the meaning behind it, behind all the what everything comes from. It is like this sort of, all of them are dealing with grief in some way. It seems like, right? Like, would that be
Definitely.
fair to say? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they have different ways of denying it, but building their lives around this, this sort of wound. Like Mara feels like she's not entitled to inhabit her own life because of her grief that never had anywhere to go. And Linda kind of gamely refuses to feel grief in a way, like she just reframes it as self-pity.
Yeah.
Like she's a person with dashed dreams. And it's interesting how Linda feels delusionally entitled to be fabulous, and her daughters don't feel entitled to any kind of peace in very different ways. And one of them is just better at like passing as a functional person.
Yeah. Except still feeling that somehow there's some sort of dissociation that just from like being in this like really great relationship. The two relationships, the two daughters are both in relationships that are very different. They would get to see and both sort of strain the relationships in the course of the book. They're very strained. I don't even know. I forget if Shannon, does she stay with Brandy?
No, they kind of break up as friends.
Yeah, we don't really know, right? Yeah.
I mean, in my mind, they break up. It's interesting. Shannon, I realized recently.
They're friends. Yeah, they're more friends, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Although, like they have a friend intimacy. I realized recently that she actually remains significantly mysterious to the reader.
Yes.
And she's actually mysterious to me. And I think Shannon,
okay.
like I realized that, how there's stuff you do in writing something that you only realize long after you wrote it, like, oh, that was a motif, or, oh, I was actually getting at this theme in addition to this other one. Like you sort of realize the logic in retrospect. I realized that Shannon remains mysterious. Like she's not fully exposed to the reader because I wanted her to maintain some sense of dignity.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind hearing, like, would you read a little passage of Shannon? I'd love to hear a little passage of her, just because, like, I actually totally identified with Shannon. She was the one I most identified with. So just like wants to like buy a ticket to Nashville and just do, like just get out of town, like just sort of like, and just keeps trying to leave and can't quite get out of town.
I know, yeah.
Something very, I might have identified with her the most. So it's funny that you say that you understand her the least. So
it's not that I don't understand her. It's that I decided to give her some space.
Yeah.
So I really love the dialogue between her and Brandy, but that doesn't read well with one person. So I'm just going to read from chapter 8, page 108, which is when Mara and Linda first arrive back in the apartment that Shannon has occupied for a stretch of days, smoking all of her best friend Brandy's weed that she stole from Brandy. And Brandy smokes really, really good weed. And she's just like, her whole escape plan has gone up in smoke. And I actually, I'm not going to start with the first sentence, which is about dreams that are insane, because I think I found out from an actual person who smokes weed that you don't really dream that much as a stoner. I'm not a stoner, so I should have done my research on that part. Somebody can feel free to weigh in on the chat. What?
I said I sleep a lot better stoned. But
See, what baits the dreams? Because the line here is like, the dreams are insane. I think you don't have insane dreams when you smoke a lot.
no, almost none.
Exactly. See, do your research, Claire. Okay, here we go. Sleep, wake, smoke, repeat. On what might be the third day, she wakes up in an hour with no shape, just gray light. Noises in the apartment. Why? Who? A wedge of foam between each thought. A surprised voice. A scratchy voice. Women. What women? Are they coming to seize the apartment? Has she been here for months? Blazed on her bed, eating Chex Mix long enough to get herself evicted? She sits up, stares through the window at the oleander for answers. The power lines stretched behind it, the stucco cube across the street, the colorless sky. The voices go on, but she can't make out the words. Hunger pushes her out of bed. Unless she's eaten it all, there's a cupboard stocked with shiny bags and boxes of chips, crackers, cookies, puffs, kernels, corners, combos, all the best nouns. Their bright, familiar logos like billboards on the road of her new life, post-Texas, post-Brandy, post-Linda. She should have kept a journal. There were big thoughts. She can't remember them now. She cracks her door and peers through it, but it's just the voices, no people. Maybe she's dreaming them. She remembers a big thought. Shame cripples you. Stand tall and be proud of your beauty, even if you're ugly. Was that it? She straightens, squeezes her thighs, throws her shoulders back, and marches into the bathroom. The mirror greets her with a horror. Side ponytail, a halo of bedhead fuzz, eyeliner, why? A wrinkled t-shirt she doesn't recognize, boxer shorts. Whose boxer shorts? No shame. She'll face the evictors. Maybe the police have come to confiscate her looted weed. Too bad there's none left. They'll repossess her junk food. She threw the credit card in the parking lot trash can when it stopped working, but she could still be arrested. Better, maybe, to go back to bed. A presence in her bedroom. Unclear how much time has passed. A minute, an hour, a month. Everything is a little sharper, louder, like she took off her headphones. She blinks a crusty eye open. A tall, beautiful woman is staring at her. A linen dress the color of mud. A necklace at her collarbone. A bracelet. One of those women with long, bony limbs who will grow old skinny, who has never been fat. Gray-brown hair that falls to her shoulders. The same family of color as the mud-colored dress. Shades you see in a marsh or a beach. Gray, green, blue eyes that make Shannon think, if you were going to find a pool in a forest that would tell you the future, this is the color. This woman knows her. Shannon opens her other eye and half sits up. The woman sighs. Shannon sits all the way up, crosses her legs. Everything she'd imagined or remembered about Mara is right. She's perfect. She's an adult in a way Shannon will never, ever be an adult. If Mara makes a rare bad decision, she won't apologize for it. She has a reason, and if that reason is wrong, she'll have you believe it's right. It's a scary authority her half-sister has. Like she doesn't have to work to be in charge. She just is. She's a teacher or something. That makes sense. Mara looks at Shannon's bed, her floor, her piles. She turns around and stares past the oleander. She's looking for somewhere to sit. She folds her arms around her middle, lowers herself to the edge of Shannon's mattress, and it bends toward her weight. I'm not in jail, Shannon says, surprised at her voice. Mara replies. The pieces find each other and form the corner of a jigsaw puzzle. If Mara is here, her mother is here. The owner of the other voice, Linda, alive, possibly with a bedpan, a walker, an IV, a paralyzed face, drool. Shannon is not in Tennessee. She's never going to be friends with Brandy again. Her boss probably won't give her another chance. She'll have to get a job at CVS. How will she work if her mother is drooling over a bedpan? There's no more weed left. I'll stop there.
That was great. I'm so glad. I mean, again, I still like, I can't believe you didn't do any research. I can't believe you're not a pothead.
I grew up with one. Hi, Mom. Also, like, I'm from California. It's just, it's part of the culture.
It's around, yeah. Again, I mean, you have, I haven't done a word search in the document, but you used the word bedhead, the phrase bedhead fuzz in that. In the early one, you had fuzz of freeway and ocean. There's a lot of fuzz in the book.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. It's nice to have the recurring motifs in the book. We're getting to be, it's quarter of, so we can, if anyone that does have any questions, throw some questions in. I'm totally open to that. I can ask questions of the audience if you like. I see your mom has a lot of books behind her. Do you grow up with a lot of books? Is that like a thing that?
Yeah, I grew up with two ladies who've read, my mother and my grandmother. My mom actually has a really wonderful collection of vintage children's books that I'm very moved by. But she had a super tall bookcase full of books, and so well, my grandmother was more of a library goer. Her bookcase didn't get a lot of.
It's always interesting to me, like where, like, how one becomes a writer, how one sort of like, is it like something that you just sort of saw and saw that was something that was honored, and you think, like, me growing up, it wasn't a thing. There wasn't like books around that much. There were books around, and we had a bookcase, but it wasn't, I never saw anyone go to the bookcase really.
Yeah.
And my grandmother had these books up in her attic that I think were from her divorce or something. And
books from her divorce.
Yeah, but she stored them in the attic, and she stored them. You had to walk across. You know how in attics, like the unfinished part of the attic is just like insulation with like the joists.
Yeah.
And I had to like sort of tightrope across the joist to get to the books. They were like put on the other side of like this pink ocean of insulation. And I used to like love just going over there. I'd like go over there and just sort of like find these strange books and like read those ones. And like I only want to read books that were like sort of like hard to get like that. There was some reason they were like they represented a disaster, a bad moment in life, but they couldn't be thrown away, but they were put in a place you couldn't get to. They weren't. I don't remember, she had no bookcases in her like downstairs. It wasn't like there were bookcases. We spent most of our time at my grandmother's, but I think that they were sort of the secret thing that contained like this energy of another life, like was something that attracted me to them. And then I would end up reading, when I was a little older, I'd read the books my mother would hide in her, like in, the dirty books she'd hide like in her drawer. She had like Henry Miller. I remember like a book, the Rosy Crucifixion, which was like filthy, this filthy book that she had hidden in her lingerie drawer. And I'd like sort of pull it out. That's
great.
Like those are the books I want to read. That's why my first book, or my first memoir, called Another Bullshit Night in Suck City, so that, parents would hide it from their children. And,
mine's right there. I don't.
Your book is right out there. Yeah. Well, you did the sensible thing of putting a normal title on a book that's like completely bonkers. So.
No, I'm saying like your book with the funky title.
My book is
right there.
We could say something about your title of your book too, like the Silver Beach, like that. This is the beach that is the center of the memories, right? Like.
Yeah. I struggled with the title. It was the working title for a really long time because that's the place that it takes place. And Silver Beach is basically Pacific Beach, which is a real town in San Diego, and it's where my mom grew up. And so Silver Beach has kind of elements of the Pacific beach of my memory and of my family's mythology, and it has elements of the neighboring beach towns, Ocean Beach and Imperial Beach. And
Is it invented? Silver Beach? It's not a real.
Yeah, it's not real. I also have Silver Beach Denny's mug, which is a real mug from a fake place. There's a Pacific Beach Denny's, but it burned down and closed down recently, which was really devastating to learn. And all the streets in Pacific Beach, or most of them, are named after minerals. And there's a little spit of land near Coronado Island called the Silver Strand. But my concern with the title was that it sounded too like women's fiction, and I was really clear when I talked to the people designing the book that it not have a cover that suggested like footprints on a beach or something. I worried that it sounded like a romance novel.
No, it didn't to me, but maybe it is because of the cover, and maybe just from the first page I realized it wasn't a romance novel. So
Yeah.
But that is the beach. The beach is where like Allison died, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it has that same, the central grief is like in the title. So
Right.
We have a question, JW.
I know who that is.
I was actually struck just now by Claire's remark that it's a real mug from a fake place, and this question is a little bit for your mother, Claire.
That's fun.
Do you get a sense, Susan, that this novel, this story is a fake mug from a real place? No, she's not taking this bait. All right, that's fine. But same question really to Claire. Like writing this, the emotional tenor of this kind of work. Where do you draw this from, and does it feel entirely like fiction?
I was really deliberate about not having a me character. I didn't want there to be a clear analog where people could go, oh yeah. And I think this book has to do with things that I'm a little obsessed by, like the kind of like curdled California dream, like my sort of very deeply ambivalent relationship with Southern California's kind of not landscape, because the like geologically and nature wise it's exquisite and beautiful, but the way that it was developed just kind of turns my stomach, and I always felt really alienated from. So there's a little bit of that. The precarity, the class precarity is something that is just really resonant with me. I've always kind of been super intrigued by siblings as an only child. And I think Shannon embodies a lot of my worst fears. I think I have always been afraid of being a fuck up, which is why I'm just like kind of far from that. I have this super stable job at the city, and I don't like getting stoned. So I think like Shannon contains a lot of like very deep-seated, like I identify kind of with her, but I know that my life doesn't look like hers, and I know that I don't seem like her. And then Mara is someone who, like, if I knew her in real life, I would feel kind of intimidated by her, and it was kind of fun to try and inhabit someone who I knew that she has a lot of qualities I envy in other people, like her calm, her deliberateness, her ability to just be quiet and take it in and not just be like and then Linda's kind of a drag queen character, and I think maybe I always need a drag queen character in my fiction.
I just reminded the question, JW's question, that there's I think it's somebody asked Robert, I think it was Robert Creeley, that Laurie Anderson's been doing this series of talks for Harvard, and in one of them she quoted, I believe, a question that was asked to Robert Creeley after he read a poem, and the question was, is that a real poem or did you just make it up? And it's like that. Like, I think all art is like that. It's sort of like, is this, is that real or did you just make it up? And it's like, well, yeah, what is that? Anna, you had your hand up, I think, right?
Hi, Anna.
Hi, Claire. Hi, Nick. Claire, I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about Allison. We don't really know a lot about her. I feel like she kind of haunts the novel, and I'm wondering how you sort of understand her and her absence as a presence and her sort of meaning to the book, to the book as a whole.
I had a conversation with my friend Claire Needham, who interviewed me for the Skylight Books podcast recently, which if you feel like hearing me talk more, there's a link on my website. But she and I had a very, very long conversation before the interview. And one thing we talked about was how Linda kind of represents the California dream gone sour, and Allison represents the sort of chimera of the California dream. Like, she represents some sense of like just sun-kissed beauty and freedom and ease that I think we're supposed to feel will be granted to us if we are in that place. And she dies. So I think I just wanted to like pop that bubble. And she, it is a novel about grief, and she represents something no one can have. Linda can't have the sort of narcissist's dream of a daughter who is just like her, who they can have this mutual worship. And Mara can't have a companion who understands her the way Allison did. And Shannon can't have a fabulous big sister who doesn't, seem like a ghost. Mara's like a ghost, and Allison isn't really a ghost. She's just an absence. So I think I wanted to take, I guess, this fantasy, like there's something very fantastical about Allison, and just kind of take it away, I guess.
It's a great question. Yeah, I was wondering that too. Like, I wonder, like, I hear like, fiction writers often have to lay out like all the, characteristics of the characters, like sort of get a sense of them all, or not all fiction writers, but I talked to a guy who's writing a screenplay today, and he's a friend of mine, and he's saying that, in the characters, he's sort of laying out everything they know about them, just so that even though it doesn't end up in the script, so they have a sense of who they are. And Allison would be the one that, I think that she's more of a representation of a type or something, of the, of the lost dream or something.
And I should say, Anna, that like, these are things I wasn't consciously aware of as I was writing it. They were all just kind of functioning on this, like, there's just this hum. And then I can articulate them in retrospect.
I remember I wrote a play once that in it, there's a character in it that is, he may or may not be homeless. Like, it's not really clear, like he doesn't say he's homeless, but he seems like he's homeless. And when in my 20s, I had a lot of friends like that. Like, you couldn't really tell, like, do you live anywhere? Like, are you? And when the actor went to play the role, like the actor really wanted to know, like, am I homeless or aren't I homeless? Like, I need to know whether I'm homeless or not. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I couldn't really help him. I'm like, didn't you know people like this, that like you can't really know for sure? Like, he says he's not homeless, but he might be homeless. Like, it was very unsatisfying for the actor, because the actor really wanted to know, like, I just need to know whether I am homeless or not. And I was like,
I guess.
Yeah, you can decide, change it each night, like whatever.
Yeah.
That's what it seemed like with my friend. Like, he could just sort of change it each night anyway. So.
And in a way, like, that's what that kind of precarity is like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
homelessness isn't an identity, it's a situation.
Yeah, unhoused, or those unhoused.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're rounding out to 9 o'clock. I think we're getting very close to the end. Does anyone have one last comment, or we can sort of yeah, we have Javier's come back, so I think this is like our signal that we're.
Maybe everybody could, if they don't mind, turn on their cameras so I can do a screenshot and see all your beautiful faces. I'm so grateful
That's
for
nice.
your
Yvonne, hi,
presence.
Yvonne. Yvonne Cons is here. Jennifer Epstein's here. Very nice.
Thank
They
you
might
so
not know.
much.
Yvonne, oh, yeah, Yvonne like jumped away when I said hi.
Hi, Vince. Hi, Ben. Hi, Ben. I don't even know where you are. Where are you? Midtown? So many of my wonderful City of School colleagues are here. I'm so honored. I work at the best school.
The book was great. Thank
Yes, we love you.
you.
Thank you so much.
Artist
Nick.
look. I'm so proud of you, Claire. Congratulations.
Yeah,
Thank you, Elisa.
Very
great,
happy for you.
really great book.
I can't wait to read the book.
Yeah, you're in for a treat.
Yes. And Mrs. Cox, it's nice to meet you. Mhm. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Cox. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you very
Thanks,
much. Meet you too.
Thanks everyone for coming out tonight. Thank you, Nick and Claire, for such an amazing conversation. All your talk in California made me a little nostalgic for home. I'm from Sacramento.
Oh, get
born
out of
and
here.
raised, and yeah, so it's every time somebody talks about, whether in fiction or nonfiction, about California, it just makes me a little nostalgic. I miss it.
Totally.
But that was fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight, and do yourself a favor, buy copies of Silver Beach, based on the reading and the questions by Nick. That was an amazing. The book is amazing. You've got to check it out, and also check out Nick's work. Personally, Another Bullshit Night in Suck City is not only one of the best titles ever, it's a fantastic memoir. So
It's incredible.
thank you guys so much. It really is incredible. Thanks Claire and Nick, and thanks everybody for coming out. And if you guys can just stick around for 2 seconds after everyone leaves, just want to
Okay.
thank you guys. Thanks everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.